Yeah, I wanted to talk about some summer scouting for mature bucks. It's exciting this time of year. Can you believe it? We're only about 3 months away from most seasons opening. In fact, we're going to be hunting in Kentucky. I think it's September 6th, somewhere around there. That's less than 3 months away. So we got to get in gear. We're seeing these big mature bucks right now. There's some good ones right here. We've been watching them during the summer. They come and go. We think one is junior, and I think one is righty. But we're already getting some good growth. I mean, even this morning, right here, walking through, we have the camera right behind me, getting good growth. We have a camera over there. They bed right over there a lot of times, and then they're coming through this way, back and forth. Again, very exciting. But what's it mean for hunting season? And that's ultimately what we're watching these bucks for right now. You know, what's it all mean? Why are we even watching them? Well, these mature bucks right now are typically not in the areas that they're going to be in the fall. I can say that righty is a resident around here. Junior is a resident around here. But even the same patterns that they're exhibiting right now, meaning they're bedding over there on that hillside, and then they're coming out through here and back and forth, they don't do that in the fall. That's open hardwoods over there. It's above a 2-lane highway. They're not there during the fall. When the leaves drop, there's no cover. There's a lot of activity out in the ag field right adjacent. Right now during the summer, it's lazy. The deer could really care less what's going on around them. When it gets in towards hunting season, I don't know if it's just something in the air. Do you think that's something they can recognize, Dylan?
What's that?
From year to year, they just like feel that this is a danger time when it gets into hunting season.
I don't know, yeah.
Or is it because of the increased hunting pressure at that time?
I think, yeah, they just all of a sudden they feel that pressure and it's, hey, this is what I do when this happens.
Yeah, I think it's conditional like that. I don't know, but regardless whether they feel the pressure and change, or it's something that they just, as they age, they get used to. It's this time of year, I need to move here. But bottom line is, I love watching these bucks right now, and there's a reason for that we'll talk about. But at the same time, you have to understand that these patterns are going to change. Whether they're changing from a quarter mile or they're changing from a mile and a half away. A lot of the bucks that we hunt and we see for the first time in September are not here during the summer at all. We never even get a glimpse of them. When we start seeing them in September, we'll say, wow, that's LL Beams. That's what he looks like this year. We don't even know until that time. And a lot of times we might get a glimpse in velvet right at the end, but we're not seeing some of those bucks until hardhorn. You want to have that property. You know, we're talking about that on private land. You build the property like that. You build it for fall food, fall cover, winter food, winter cover. That's a time when the deer need it the most, and that's a time when you as a hunter need that habitat the most. But the reason you're building fall food, winter cover, fall food, fall cover, winter food, is because it's completely different from what they need during the summertime. Now I can say this clover field, we make it as thick as possible. We have chicory in here, alfalfa. It's thick, lush, we maintain it. We try to control the weeds with mowing, spraying the grasses out, which we did last year. We had a lot of grass in here, and it's looking beautiful. This clover field, because we have an adjacent almost 4-acre food plot, when that starts coming up in especially late August, early August for our rut zone, because we're planting that around the 1st of July. But that later food source in the summertime, they'll start hitting that and they'll start to leave this alone. Not that they won't browse when they're coming through here. This is kind of an example of a summer food source. This is great food if this is available in November, but this is small. I don't even think this is 1/10 of an acre. That's big. More diversity, more volume for every bite. So they'll start eating over there. That'll take pressure off this. So that'll actually make this last a lot longer than normal. However, that becomes a food source right here. We're trying to contain all this in one area. They don't need a lot of this. They're eating on this every day, and look how thick it is. Just incredibly lush and full. You see all this is getting nipped on the tops. Everything's getting nipped off on the top. But it's still, the deer can't keep up with the growth. Even in something this small, even when there's almost no food out here, it's just the buckwheat coming in for our cover crop. So big difference out there. You know, while we're talking about this, and I hate to interrupt, but we have our food plot seed company, Pure Wildlife Blends, and I want you guys to have some great plots, and it's getting to planting time. July is our biggest month for people buying. 1st of July, we're focusing on our rut zone. When it gets into the end of July, we're focusing on our Big Boost Brassica, our Big Boost 365, our Fall Power 365s. Those are some of our biggest offering. We're standing in our PPP, our our perennial plot power. So those are some of our favorites. Urge you to check it out. Let's get back to what we were talking about, but appreciate you guys checking this out. Those are a few of my favorites, but we have 19 offerings. So what's it all mean? You know, these deer are going to change. They're going to go to their fall food sources. Maybe that'll be adjacent. A lot of times that's within a mile, mile and a half. We're waiting for probably 2/3 of our bucks to come in September and October. They'll be there till January, February. We don't even care if we don't find their antlers. We just want to know that they're alive. Get a trail cam photo, get a visual sighting of them. So what's it all mean? I just want to know they're alive. I want to look at these bucks, see that they're still alive. I want to be able to identify them. That's what they look like this year. That's our target buck. We know the age because we know what he was last year. That's that, in some cases, 2-year-old, depending on where you live, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. Depending on what age that buck is, you're saying that's that buck. We've been watching him for 3 years, 2 years. Last year was the first year. And that's our target for this year. Once you know that, then you ask yourself, what did he do last year? What were his patterns? Then you can predict those patterns. And as long as you get everything set up ahead of time, I look at it like we could come out here, spook these deer. Doesn't matter. It's middle of June. Really could care less if these bucks don't show up here for a week because Dylan and I were out here filming. It really doesn't matter. In fact, later on this afternoon, we're going to pull a turkey blind that's right over here. That commotion and noise will spook deer. We don't care. If they come back in 2 weeks, great. If they come back in 3, great. If they come back in a week, if it takes a month, it doesn't really matter. We're a long ways away from hunting season. The point is, that stand back there is ready. This stand right here is ready. That stand is ready over there. So really, we can slow our activities down as it gets closer to the beginning of the season. We can let these bucks fall into those patterns that they actually showed us and revealed to us last fall. We know which buck it is. We understand the patterns from last year. So when I'm even during hunting season, it's not, I think I can kill this buck here. It's where did that buck come from? Where is he bedding? Why is he feeding in this location? Is the food source the same? Well, when you have food plots, it is. That's why it's so bad when you have cover surrounded by ag land and you let the ag land and the farmer dictate when the deer are using your land based on the whims of the crop rotation. When we have food plots here, we could care less what's happening in the ag land just right over there about 150 yards. It doesn't matter because we control the daylight movement here. It's the same year after year. The mature bucks get lulled into that and then they go out there. So the patterns that we see from one fall to the next say relatively the same. The difference, when you have a fall property like this, then what you end up seeing, that you pull deer in September, October, that you don't see the rest of the time. A lot of times they'll come in and say late October, early November for the first time. What we see as they age is they typically come into your property a little bit earlier the next year. They recognize this is my fall property, and the older they become, this is that window they're here from velvet shedding all the way till when they leave in January, February. And that's that set pattern. We see that more defined as they get older. And hopefully you do too. But bottom line is they'll reveal that pattern the year before. We want to ID them, make sure they're still alive, what they look like, identifying them as a target. And then we have a game plan going into this fall. Good thing is too, we don't use minerals around here. It's illegal. We see these deer on these food plots like this, these small clover plots right here. But we're all set up by our stand locations. We have mock scrapes. We have cameras on them. When those deer start revealing their fall patterns this year, we'll find them, and we'll find them at our stand locations. That's why it's more important, especially as the season progresses, to have cameras and to be able to scout where those deer are coming from in their bedding areas during the daylight, their fall bedding areas at your stand locations, as opposed to out here in the fields where this food source changes that one. You'd have to keep moving the camera around this big field right here. It's 4.5 acres altogether to pick up exactly where they're at from one season shift to the other. I really want to know where they're back there, 150 yards, over there 100 yards, back down the bottom on another food plot over a water hole. So, or another stand over a water hole. So that's what we really want to see. So we're just identifying it right now, and we'll relate that to patterns during the fall. Don't get misled into thinking where they're at right now is where they're going to be. And that's how we use summer scouting right now for mature bucks to help us really hone in on a mature buck and the exact mature target buck we want to for this fall.